And without further ado, we are going to jump right into the heart of the session. My first question is for Zaria. So, Zaria, you have done an incredible job with Duolingo's account. You have grown it from, I think it says 50,000 in September 2021 to what, over 6.7 million now?
Yeah.
Which is quite an impressive growth. And I know for me, the Duolingo bird is the reason I have actually downloaded, Duolingo and downloaded the app and got engaged. So tell us a bit about it. Tell us, what is the secret to success?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is taking a step back and seeing how social media is actually transformed. The biggest thing I feel like, especially for TikTok, and I know you can probably jump into this more, is just the democratization of virality, where essentially it doesn't really matter how big your platform is, how big of a brand you are, how much paid you're putting behind it. It's more about if you're creating entertaining content. So with that in mind, that's kind of when the shift happened in September of 2021, where I remember it was like, all right, TikTok has like 1 billion monthly active users, and working for an app, I was like, if they're on the Clock app, they're not on our app. So how do we kind of connect both of them together? And that's kind of where this strategy of TikTok kind of became Duolingo's new push notification kind of arose from. So I think the first thing was the comment section became our social brief. So we would look at what our community was saying and quite literally create that content. And then this whole idea of like making Duolingo's content into a sitcom. So each content that we put out there was almost like an episode. So if you think of your favorite TV show, there's episodes you love, there's episodes you don't like, there's things that are just there to build a story. And every piece of content we created built a story that fans would come back to, that they would want more of, and kind of create this brand flywheel of wanting more videos, wanting more content, and then eventually downloading the app.
Now, you just touched on it, but I think once you have viral success, how do you then retain those followers? How do you keep their attention? How do you keep it from being just like a one-hit pop star wonder?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is having a pulse on culture, and the way that we've kind of split it up is our team who's creating TikTok content is very much in the weeds of it. It's something we've loved and we've always enjoyed, so it comes natural to us. And the same way for Instagram or Facebook or other content we have going out, like people who that was natural to is creating the content for that. And deviating the team based on, I guess, our skill sets has really helped us create these storylines. And then also just really diving into experimentation. It's a very big test and learn platform. We're very open to failing and very open to having success, obviously. So being okay with just trying out different things, whether that's different formats, different audios, just making it an engaging experience for everyone.
It's interesting to hear you say that to succeed, you are open to failure. You don't often hear those words paired together.
Yeah, for sure.
Kinda, I want to bump on over to you. Now, you are the head for TikTok's content strategy in the Middle East, Turkey, Africa, Pakistan, Central, and South Asia markets. We hear a lot when it comes to TikTok about algorithms. You need to champion the algorithm, focus on the algorithm. What does that mean? And does the algorithm actually matter?
I mean, in general, recommendation systems are really a big part of our life, be it when we do for shopping platforms or streaming platforms. What recommendation systems do is that they offer users a personalized experience, and this is really based on users' interactions with these platforms, be it like through commenting or liking or sharing. For TikTok, the algorithm and the recommendation system, when the users first land on TikTok or open TikTok, they land on the For You feed, and this is really a personalized. There's no two For You feed in the world. Every user gets their own For You feed, and this is based on what the platform learns about how the user interacts with the content, be it sharing or commenting or liking or other parameters that plays into this. And the more you enjoy the app and the more you explore and discover content on the app, the more our recommendation systems learns about your preferences, so that it can basically over time gives you a better and a more personalized feed of the content that you're mostly interested in and ties to your passions and interests. But sometimes a user might decide that basically their For You feed is not that relevant anymore, or it's basically not covering a broader range of topics. We have rolled out an option that allows you to refresh your For You feed as well. So that basically allows you to kind of basically start interacting with content, so that the algorithm can serve you content that is basically more suitable for what your growth and interest be like.
But as a content creator, is there like a great secret? I reckon a bunch of people in this audience they do social media. As a content creator, is there a secret to hack the algorithm? Is there something I need to be doing? Do I need to be posting every day, 5 times a day? What is it?
There are tips that content creators can use to basically achieve more virality. And this ties to what basically TikTok is as a platform. TikTok is, as you've mentioned, is very much about tapping into diverse cultures. So, content creators that tap into basically these cultures, TikTok is really a place where culture starts and creativity has no bounds, basically. The other thing is the creativity and the authenticity. Because of the algorithm, because of the way that TikTok works, exactly what you said, it's not about basically popularity. It's not the influencer model, it's the creator model, which means that if your content is authentic, if you're true to your own voice as a creator or as a brand, if you are if you're creative, if you're following the latest trends, if you're tapping into the latest hashtag, the latest sounds, if you're using analytics to check basically how is your content performing and how can you optimize for the use of TikTok, you will achieve success and you will achieve virality.
And I like that you said authenticity. I think especially for TikTok as a platform, that's something that really seems, in my experience, seems to resonate, is being as authentic as you can. And in a world where social media is increasingly curated, it's really fascinating to see.
Absolutely.
Aisha, as your fusion of traditional methods and like cutting edge technology has created some really like fascinating art. I know your art has gone into space. You were Forbes 30 under 30. So I'm curious to hear from you about what do you see as the kind of future of art and creativity in terms of what will people be doing, what will they be focusing on, and how will that allow people to express themselves?
It's such a great question, and one of the reasons for that is that I think now we're living in an era that creativity is democratized. We don't see art as on a pedestal, how we used to, and that has a lot to do with the frontier technologies that we have access to collectively and also individually, because there are artists who are still pursuing traditional arts. I mean, every art, I think, has its own value. You can't take that space. And again, content and video, it's still a new medium. People are exploring it from various angles, which is great. But I think we can, at this age and time, we can explore areas of intersection, areas of interdisciplinary studies. And I think that's so important. It's not something that only artists have to think about. I think anyone who has a creative interest or has that, the curiosity to explore something new should be interested in cross-disciplinary practices at the intersection of not just art and fashion. It can be cinema with science, So think about your journey, where you're coming from, and then where you can take it. Because I think one misconception that exists in the creative industry is that, I'm coming from an engineering background and I'm a doctor. So if I want to do something with, let's say, AI and this emerging era of machine learning, how do I do something that is relatable? Because that's not who I am. I've never done art. So my answer to a lot of queries that I usually get based on my art that people see and they approach me, a lot of young girls, they ask me, how do we do it? How do we start? And my answer to them is that simply you don't have to start or you don't have to follow a formula that is set by people that you inspire to become. I mean, it's fine to have your role models. I have my own role models. But at the same time, think about becoming a role model. And it's all about the mindset of a trendsetter rather than becoming a follower. I loved what you said, that, I think algorithms are important. I think trends are important. We're all, just picking up the audio that's trending and we're just like, okay, let's make a video because we all want to become viral. But I think living in this era, it's more about creating relatability and speaking to your audience. Your audience might be different from someone else's audience, because what your, let's say outcome you require or you're aspiring to have might be a very different goal than someone else is setting for themselves. Do you want leads? Do you want people to network with you? Do you want projects? Or do you just want your profile to show who you are and the people that you know? All of them are very different intentions. So if I want my profile to just, be about, okay, these are the people that I'm meeting, then my profile is going to be very different. And then it brings us to another thing that, okay, you can have various profiles, or your profile has various main pain points, But at the same time, I think it's so important that we, as especially women, because women shy away from experimentation, women shy away from trying something new. I think they should be the one to take the lead. I think we're living in that era now, and that's why this is how I was able to send my art to space. People ask, why do we send stuff to space? Like, what's the point of me sending an artwork to space when there is no audience in space, right? Who is going to view my art? It's about a statement. It's about the fact that we can reach somewhere where we might not, I'm unable to put my foot in space, but my art can reach there. And I think that is a statement in itself, that we as humankind have a reach to a space that we thought is inaccessible.
Yeah.
So I think this in itself is a statement, and I tell this to others, that if my art went to space, it's International Space Station. But what if your projects are directly addressing Mars, let's say, and it goes even farther? So there is no limit. You define your own trend. That's what I would say.
And now you touched on the importance of finding your own audience, finding your community. How do you know who that is? How do you find that?
That's an excellent question, especially because when I started putting my work out, I remember getting very less likes on my artworks, but more likes on my pictures, And I was just like questioning, what is this mentality? Am I even in the right community? This is something that you question, right? Like, if I'm getting my pictures liked versus my artworks, which are not as much liked, maybe because, people don't want to sit and learn more about the science, but they would rather go and watch a movie. That's how general audience and their, interests are, which is fine. Then you just identify, you make a list of goals. You say that, okay, I'm going to pursue, let's say, science for next 10 years. Then you should not be thinking about trend, right? Like then your goals are set higher. You are thinking about the trends, or maybe meeting the right people, in your circle. And then in that case, maybe Instagram should not be even your priority. I know TikTok, I'm so new on TikTok, and I would love to learn more. How do I, become more active and create more engaging?
We'll talk after the panel.
But at the same time, I think, like, for me, the relevant industry to connect with the right people was actually LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the different platforms, how you're using them, where you're using them. And that's why for me, Instagram is just like a portfolio display. And I use Behance too. A lot of people don't know what Behance is. So maybe this is a moment where I can say that Behance and Miro Board, two tools which are very underrated. People should use them. It's a great way to save your data online, especially Behance, because anyone who is in creative industry want to upload their portfolio somewhere where it's safe without investing in, let's say, drive data or anything about that. So all of your work is as part of the archive of the creative industry where you get the projects. I got a lot of projects on Behance. So you have to identify your platforms. It doesn't have to be just Instagram or TikTok, whatever. So there's a lot of platforms.
I think that's really great advice. And at the end of this, we're going to come just like some rapid fire advice focused questions. And I'm so excited to hear the tips that you guys share. Naila, I want to come across to you. So your success in running a production company and your success in the film industry, pretty inspiring. I heard a rumor backstage that your film has recently just broke all sorts of records. It's out on Netflix, and your film that's out in the cinemas has broken records. You said it was there for 10 weeks? That's amazing. And so I would love to hear from you. One of the really interesting things that we see on Netflix is a responsiveness to the communities that content is released in. How do you think that communities can interact with production companies, with art, and how can you interact with those communities to create that art?
So it's a quite loaded question, but it's, I feel like I'm in a tennis game and I'm looking at them and I'm looking at them. And this is how I actually feel in real life. I'm literally your Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, because there's the creative part of me, and then there's the maniac who wants to kill it because the idea is very expensive. And that's my fiscal side, my business side. And I love your dress, by the way. So just to bring it home, I'm extremely proud that me and obviously, now this is the very tricky part. I come from a world that's very different than, let's say, the social media life, because obviously I'm 46, so do the math. And when I did my first film, I was 15 on 8mm. So we actually you touch what you make. It gives a very different respect to the medium. You can smell it, you can touch it. It's not something that's virtual. So it becomes very close to you. It's almost like a child on your chest. And you take care of your artwork. You have only 4 takes. You cannot take 100 takes like reels and remake them and make them amazing because it's expensive. So I learned how to respect the medium of content from the very old times, let's say. And my father's a film collector, so there you go. And then what happened is, then this world emerged around me. And what happened was very interesting. So I come from a world where I have thousands of hours of very rich material. Because, by the way, what happens on movie sets are more exciting than the films that we create, right? So there's like lots of amazing stories. So all this rich content that I have, now I need to find a creative way to put it out there for people to appreciate. So the same thing with Netflix. I mean, how did I even get to Netflix and get my films on Netflix in the first place? It's obviously grind and hustle like any other industry. And I really do believe in the concept that, as you have said earlier, if the content is innovative and powerful and attractive, and you know that you have a certain demographic, then you create something, whether you're in film or non-film or anything that you're doing in life, basically. You target that specific demographic and you tailor-make something for them without the most important advice that RIP Abbas Kiarostami has given me is do not lose your voice. So to find your own unique voice, like Dana has on her page, it's a very unique voice. Even when I'm scrolling, I'm like, that's her. Because the color palette, the kind of messaging, it's very unique to you. Now, I'm all over the place. So is my page. And people kind of like that. You don't know what chocolate you'll get tomorrow morning. Maybe it'll be so bitter. I don't know. It depends. But the thing is, I am feeling quite elated because I'm very proud to say that as the first female producer director, my film, we found out yesterday that it actually topped every other film in the sense from the Gulf by a female director, and it had its biggest footprint to date in history, making it the first film to go to Saudi in cinemas, first film to go to Cairo in cinemas. It actually lasted 10 weeks in the movie theater, breaking amazing records.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much. And soon in 5 other new countries. I'm actually flying to Moscow tonight to broker a deal there. So,
see some representation in the audience.
It is a very different world because my world is dark. You go to the movie theater, it's dark, and then the silver screen comes out. And I always thought, how would it feel like to have someone buy my movie ticket? And now I'm able to, through the medium of film, which is around 20,000 screens worldwide. Not that I have that, but that's my goal one day. I don't know. Maybe I'm dreaming too hard, but there's nothing wrong with that. They always say, my mom says, ask for a house, you get a room, right? So ask bigger, you'll get something, but you'll be happy. So basically, to end your thing, if the desire is there and you're very ambitious and the work is so stunning, it will be very hard for people to resist that. And the doors will start opening. And I just want to say my last advice to all the artists and content creators in this room. I know your art could be absolutely beautiful, but if you really don't have a business strategy, get someone who does and align forces and make sure that your content now has a better reach than any time before. For me, it's filmmaking, so it's movies. So my content lands in big theaters, right? Whereas what happens behind the scene, I think would be great for social media because it will be educational, entertainment, fun, uncensored. So, it goes on and on and on and on.
It's so fascinating. I feel like I want a sitcom of what happens behind the film.
You know what's going to happen? They're all going to come backstage. Half of them will pitch me, I'd like to try acting, in the next film. Everyone, from my dentist to my driver, everybody wants to be in a movie. And it's the best leverage one can get. Trust me.
Well, I want to talk a bit about virality. So I have some personal experience with this. Back during COVID, I went viral. I grew in the span of about a month from 100K to over 1 million. And then in 2 months or 3 months, I was 2 million. And honestly, it was terrifying. It was horrific on a lot of levels. But that's a different story. But one of the interesting things, we hear so many different perspectives on art, on creation, on content right now. How do you, as a creator in the audience, how do you draw that line between going after what's viral, what's cool, what's trendy, what will resonate with people versus what you as a creator want to talk about? And this is a question for everyone, so just speak up and let's debate amongst ourselves. Let's get it going. Come on, guys.
I can go first. So I think, see, it's a good idea to create content that's relatable. If something is trending, it means that people are relating to it, right? So there's the strong point. But having said that, one has to customize it in a way that it is still relevant to your brand, your niche, your personal brand, okay? So I'm not even saying that, okay, you run a company or, whatever you represent. You might be one person, an individual, but your entity can represent 10 other things. So what I'm currently giving the example of, it's for personal branding, but then it can be also, you can be relatable for other examples. But what I'm saying is, you can customize it. Like if an audio is something that you like, but then you're like, oh, but on my page, nothing of that sort is there. Usually it happens with me that, okay, I'm more into sci-fi, but suddenly I like something which is much more traditional. So I'm overthinking the content before putting it out. And I'm sure it happens with a lot of people. That sometimes when you're thinking about experimentation, the idea of exploration is so haunting that you end up not doing it, right? So I think my suggestion for that is that you create a sweet balance, okay? You somehow make it relevant to your page, and that's where the innovation is. That's where you as a content creator can contribute to the same thing. And now this is just an example of an audio, but you can do something with, let's say, LinkedIn carousels. I'm a big person on LinkedIn. I always talk about the usages of LinkedIn because I've been able to make a lot of meaningful connections on LinkedIn, right? So I think for entrepreneurs, LinkedIn is definitely a better platform. It's a platform that can connect you with the people behind the camera. So let's say if you're someone who is interested to meet or connect with people who have portfolios, who are visual people, who are maybe actors, singers, then your go-to platform is Instagram. But and then you can think about the viral content. You can see the explore page, and it's a very different story. However, if you're someone who is trying to connect with, let's say, viral content on informative stuff, then maybe LinkedIn is your go-to platform. And then the strategies that you can read up on, there are influential people who can guide you. So on Instagram, I think most of the time with Instagram and YouTube, you have to do the guessing game, how the algorithm is working. Unless you have someone who is like a back-end guy and he can teach you like what's the current algorithm, because
there's someone at the the TikTok that can tell you what's happening with the
algorithm. They shift it quite often, right? But with LinkedIn, things are quite at a pace. And I think when I was doing my project that went to space, International Space Station, it just happened because I was putting out enough space art paintings. And suddenly I noticed that someone in SpaceX or someone, NASA's former chief scientist, is interested in my vision.
Yeah.
And that's the power of art. That's the power of visualization. The things that are not there, like for me, putting out different identities of the world, not just my identity, which is a Pakistani identity, but the identities of, let's say, UAE women, let's say identity of someone in Mexico, someone in America. Why can't women be represented in space with their cultures? Because the next era is going to be space. And in space, we will take our cultures with us, otherwise it will be very boring. So I talk a lot about the kind of content that is definitely the future. Space is the future. So one thing that we were discussing backstage is that how space is linked with everything that we're doing. We think that space is there, we are on Earth, so only scientists get to talk about space. But no, every industry is linked with space. So this is one topic. People have no idea there is no good content on space. People think, okay, it's just for scientists. And space and tech, the combination has immense potential. If you think about films, if you think about art, if you think about futuristic digital art, think about anything, fashion, spacesuit designs.
Yeah,
I'm working on a biosuit.
It's something I can tell you're very passionate about it, and
exactly.
It's so interesting to hear how you navigate kind of viral versus staying true to yourself. Yeah. And what about you guys? Any tips? Like, should we go always for this cool, trendy, viral thing, or?
So I can shed some color here. So I mean, the first and foremost, it's that authenticity and being true to your own voice is very true. I mean, you be yourself because everybody else is taken. But that doesn't. So the other tips that I talked about, like understanding your audience, the analytics, and being true to yourself and having your unique voice, does not mean that you cannot tap into the trends, because you can tap into the trends using a hashtag, using a sound, using the effect, while keeping true to who you are. Another tip is really leverage the power of co-creation to achieve this virality, still keeping your own voice through the tools, that content that encourages co-creation through basically duets, stitches, or any of those other tools, or call to actions to encourage participation. These are all very, very important things. When we talk about trend setting, it's not necessarily just jumping into a trend, but starting a trend as well. That could be something
But
that...
how do you know? Because it's great to start a trend, but like, how do you know what?
Experimentation.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about it. You talked about it. Experimentation is important. That's as a platform, we want to give creators the tools and the data and analytics to understand what works, what works, what doesn't. And that's why it's not about the number of followers that you have. And we talked about this backstage. You could have millions of followers, and one video or can get only a certain number of views, and basically you could have 10K followers or more, but your video can get millions of views. So these are quite important. And the last thing I'd like to add is to make sure that the content has value. And that is either content that is informative or content that is entertaining, or a combination of both, really. So, I mean, according to recent studies, we've seen that 72% of users think that TikTok content is informative, and so there's a lot of content about science. There's a lot of content about film, and 68% of users think that the TikTok content is authentic. So what users appreciate about the content is that it's content from creators, brands that are sticking true to one's own voice.
I think also from a brand perspective, as like someone who's a content creator for a brand, which is like this weird middle in between, is the strategy that we developed, which we call candy to the medicine, where essentially your candy is like engaging in these trends, being entertaining, maybe not being as brandy, and then the medicine is like subtly pushing in the brand messaging once they're hooked. So like for Duolingo, that'll be like a crazy push notification of like saying like, do your lesson or I'll bang on your door. And all of a sudden everyone's like, whoa. And then the brand messaging is like, learn this language. This will help you elevate XYZ skills. So once you hook people, it's really easy to bring in that brand messaging. And I think TikTok does a great job and so many opportunities with trends to get that candy, get that hook, and then you can bring in the messaging you need to bring in.
And I want to say for promoting and marketing, I used AI. So basically, So basically, I spoke in 7 different languages, and I was able to tap into all these demographic influencers, Chinese, Malayalam, all these different languages, and they were able to go and watch my movie in the cinema. We're able to sell 43,000 tickets. That's 43,000 humans who bought tickets. That's a big concert hall. And what's incredible about AI, we're also the first Arabic film to use AI. The entire film is in Mandarin right now. It was playing in Dragon Mart in Mandarin. And what was an epic failure, I have to say, is that people wanted the original language. And we're like, but you do dubbing. And it was interesting because we used the voices of the actual artists themselves. So it's your voice, but in a different language. And what was uncomfortable, obviously, there's no lip syncing right now because the technology is still very, new. And they wanted it to hear it. They'd rather read the subtitle than hear it in a different language. And we thought that's very fascinating, but not the cosmopolitan. So basically, the focus group showed us that people in the cosmopolitan area preferred subtitles and original language, and then people who live in the rural area obviously wanted to hear dubbing, and that didn't bother them as much. But the biggest finding was it lacked emotion. So our lovely robot that we kept feeding him all the different voices of our artists, he wasn't able to give the emotion that the artists were giving in the original version of the film. So that was a very interesting exercise.
I wish we had more time to talk about AI. Yeah, brava.
And the film in Chinese, right, in Mandarin, is actually right now, as we speak, at the Chinese Corporation Office. And again, if it passes, it will be the first UAE film in China, even if we get a small release. And by the way, just to put things in context, I had 120 cinemas in the 7 countries. And then the distribution company came and apologized and said, we're so sorry, it's a small film. You might be lucky and get 3,000 screens. And I had to put a flat face and say, oh, that's such a small number, but it's okay. It means a lot to me. I mean, we're talking 17,000 concert halls. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. And that's just because of AI, so thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm aware of the time. We've got giant big screens here. So final question. This is speed round in 30 seconds or less. What would be your one tip for content creators, creatives in this space? Go.
Okay, so I would say that everyone needs to learn two terms, fusion tech and interdisciplinary studies, because it relates to everything. And if you can Google these two terms, I'm pretty sure you can find some connection with whatever you're doing. And trust me, it's linked with the future. So that's all I would say.
Right.
I know it's fun to like post pictures of your coffee and how beautiful your girlfriend is and happy birthday, Tina. To be honest, nobody cares unless your own, I'll be harsh. It's your close circle of friends that really care. So I think I do this. I fall into this all the time because it's human nature. So 15 seconds. But my advice would be make that content interactive. So something new I started was a poll. So I ask people, have you been here? What do you rank this restaurant for me? And they become interactive, it becomes more interesting. And then I will share the result. So maybe be a bit more interactive with your content and give your viewers something to learn. And by learning things yourself. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. All right, Zadia?
I would just say the cost of disruption is risk. So take risks if you want to be an early adopter.
That's good.
My personal favorite is the content that does basically play on words and puns. I find that very engaging and very funny. Add to that any basically additions of languages and with some explanations to enable you to tap into different cultures. That really, really works. Yeah.